For most of human history, power looked obvious. Kings wore crowns, presidents took oaths, generals marched armies down open roads. But real power, the kind that survives revolutions, wars, and elections, rarely shows its face. It hides in boardrooms, treaties, and centuries-old networks that never needed a spotlight. And at the center of those networks sit a handful of families, not in a mystical, conspiratorial sense, but in the very real, very documented way influence is built, inherited, and protected. This is the story of 7 families whose decisions have shaped currencies, borders, industries, and even beliefs, quietly, consistently, and often invisibly. The first were the Medici of Florence. In the 1400s, they invented modern banking, not the idea of money, but the mechanics of money. They created letters of credit, allowing merchants to travel without physical gold. They financed popes, kings, explorers, even artists like Michelangelo. When the Pope needed money, he called the Medici. When kings needed loans for wars, they called the Medici. And in return, the Medici earned something greater than wealth: political immunity. At their peak, one Medici became Queen of France, 2 became popes. The family controlled Europe not by swords, but by signatures. They taught the world a lesson it has never forgotten. Money doesn't follow power. Power follows money. Centuries later, another dynasty rose by mastering that same idea: the Rothschilds. In the early 1800s, 5 Rothschild brothers spread across Europe: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, Frankfurt, creating a financial network faster than any government. During the Napoleonic Wars, they became the quickest source of wartime intelligence. Their couriers outran military messengers, giving them information hours before kings received it. When the Battle of Waterloo ended, Nathan Rothschild in London knew the result before the British cabinet did. And that knowledge allowed him to influence the bond markets that funded entire nations. By the 1850s, the Rothschilds were financing railroads, canals, and the Suez Canal itself, the waterway that connected Europe to Asia and reshaped global trade. They didn't rule nations. They ruled the capital that nations depended on. Another family used oil rather than banks: the Rockefellers. In the late 1800s, John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil into the largest oil company in the world. At its height, it controlled 90% of American oil, fuel for cars, ships, factories, and wars. When the US government broke up Standard Oil in 1911, it didn't weaken the family. It made them richer. Each broken company became an oil giant of its own: Exxon, Chevron, Mobil, and the Rockefellers became the shareholders behind many of them. They used their influence to shape education, healthcare, and foreign policy. Rockefeller money built the University of Chicago, funded medical breakthroughs, and later created the Council on Foreign Relations, a think tank that quietly advises presidents and diplomats to this day. The Rockefellers proved that when you control energy, you control the engine of civilization. Another family shaped the modern world not through oil, but through industry and steel: the Carnegies. Andrew Carnegie's steel empire built America's skyscrapers, railroads, and bridges. But his real influence came after he sold his company and focused on philanthropy. He donated so widely, libraries, education, peace institutions, that he shaped not just what Americans built, but what they believed knowledge should be. His Carnegie Endowment for International Peace became one of the earliest global think tanks. Long before soft power had a name, the Carnegies used philanthropy to shape culture, diplomacy, and global cooperation. Across the Atlantic, the House of Saud changed the balance of world power not through banks or steel, but through oil beneath the desert. In 1938, American geologists struck oil in Saudi Arabia. That single discovery turned a small kingdom into the world's largest oil exporter. For decades, Saudi oil determined global energy prices. During the 1973 oil embargo, the Saudis cut production, and the world economy shook. Presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders learned the same truth: you cannot negotiate with global energy without negotiating with the Saud family. Their influence isn't historical, it's right now. Saudi decisions still move markets, currencies, and alliances. Then came the families who shaped the world through media and information. The Murdochs, for example, built a media empire across 3 continents: newspapers, television networks, cable channels. Politicians from London to Sydney sought Rupert Murdoch's approval because his headlines could sway elections. His media networks shaped public opinion on wars, economics, and leaders. The Murdochs didn't just report the news, they influenced what millions believed the truth was. And finally, in the modern age, a new type of family emerged, not tied by blood, but by ownership. The Zuckerbergs, Bezoses, and tech founders who control platforms larger than nations. Facebook reaches more people daily than most countries. Amazon reshaped global commerce. Google organizes the world's information and decides which information we see first. These families didn't inherit power. They engineered it through code, algorithms, and digital ecosystems that touch every minute of modern life. Their influence isn't formal. It isn't elected, but it is everywhere. 7 families, different centuries, different industries, different methods. But all shared one trait. They built systems the world could not function without. The Medicis gave us banking. The Rothschilds gave us global finance. The Rockefellers gave us energy. The Carnegies gave us industrial power and culture. The House of Saud gave us modern oil. The Murdochs shaped public opinion. And the tech dynasties shaped the digital world. These families don't rule the world in the way kings once did. They do something far more powerful. They shape the systems the world runs on. And when you shape the system, you don't need a crown. You don't need a throne. You just need the ability to rewrite the rules. Because real power isn't loud. It isn't elected. It doesn't march or shout. Real power is inherited quietly, exercised subtly, and felt everywhere. Sometimes in gold, sometimes in oil, sometimes in media, and today, in the code behind every screen. The world changes, the faces change, but the pattern remains. A few families build the frameworks, everyone else lives inside them, and that is how the world is ruled, quietly, system by system, generation by generation. You've just seen one chapter of hidden history. Subscribe to see the rest of the empire.